Okay, welcome back to class, everyone. Today we are working on a project in SQL using the data set. I said we'll be using the healthcare data set majorly for our analysis in SQL. Our project title is Improving Hospital Operations and Patient Care Using Data. Okay, and we have a business case scenario here. All right, we work now at a medical center. Okay, or maybe we don't even work there, we are just working as a freelancer and they sent us this documentation to go through to know what we are getting ourselves into. Okay, so a medical center is a mid-sized multi-branch hospital. That means that we have a mid-sized center. It has multiple branches and handles thousands of patients admission yearly. As hospital costs rise and patient volume increase, the hospital management wants to make data-driven decisions to optimize operations, reduce costs, and improve patient care outcomes. However, they currently lack clear insights into billing trends, treatment patterns, and resource usage across departments. Okay, as the data analyst that wants to work with them to solve these problems now, we've been tasked with using hospital data to uncover pattern in billing, length of stay, medication usage, and insurance behavior. Our analysis will guide strategic decisions such as renegotiating insurance contracts, streamlining treatment protocols, and improving patients' turnover time. Okay, so now this is the business case scenario that we have at hand. It's just to make us understand the problem or it's just to make us understand the state of the company that we want to work with currently. So we have a background check before we can now proceed to solve their actual problem. So here are some of the business questions we'll try to answer based on this business case scenario. They want to know which medical condition has the highest average billing amount. We also want to know what the average length of stay per admission site is. Also, we want to know which insurance providers cover the highest cost cases, and what are the most common medications used by diagnosis. What is the average time to discharge by hospitals? Okay, so when giving this kind of business case scenario together with business questions, we read through it and we feel like, okay, I think I understand everything that the business question is asking me, right? That's the ask phase. If you have any question, you have doubts, you have something you're unsure about the business question, you already know you go back to your stakeholder to ask that, oh, what do you mean by this? I mean, yeah, let me know. So you can ask them that, okay, how do you want this? What do you mean by this? You understand? But if you feel like, okay, I'm good to go, I understand everything perfectly, I'm ready for the next stage, which is prepare. Now you get access to the database, right? I already showed you how they could grant you access to the database, if that's the case, okay? And if they will grant you access to the database, all you have to do is just connect to the database, which I've showed you in our previous class, okay? And another way is they could send you the Excel file and ask you to like import it into SQL. Also, in our previous class, when we were talking about beginner SQL, I also showed you how you can import data sets, and that was how we imported the data set that we actually are using in this class. Next phase after you get the data and everything is now to like clean your data. That's data processing, okay? But before we get to data processing, in the prepare phase, let's explore our data. I said we also try to like get to know each of the columns in our data set. What is it talking about? You just want to have a very good idea if the data set you have will actually answer the business question that you were asked. Okay. So now on this part, we are going to be starting this analysis with data exploration. Okay, we want to explore our data. That's what we want to do in the prepare phase. Okay, we've gotten the data, we want to explore it. We want to know what columns we have. We want to just see how our data set is like. Okay, so now I can just write a comment and just do data exploration around here. Right, you already know this dash is for comments, right? We've done that in our previous class, so I won't be talking much on everything that we've discussed in our previous class. And if you didn't watch the videos from our previous class and you are a total beginner, I advise you to check them out because you are going to learn a lot about the basics of SQL. All right, for our data exploration, we already have the data set in our database, which is this my first DB we created in our class. Okay, and now we can just check what the data table looks like. The name of the data table is healthcare data. So I can say from healthcare. And you can see it's showing me a green line. So it looks like I opened a comment here, a multiple line comment here, but I didn't close it. So I'm just going to close it somewhere around there with a double asterisk and a slash. Okay. So you can see now that looks like we are good to go. Okay, for the data exploration, I first want to see what my data set looks like. Okay. I can see that, oh, I have these are the columns I have in my data set. Does it look like the data set will need cleaning or anything like that? If you think it will need it, you can just document which cleaning you think it will have. And also considering the business question, are we going to be able to answer the business question? You can see from the business question, they're asking us something on medical condition, billing amounts. We have that, right? We have average length of stay days by admission type, okay? So we have admission type here, okay, average length of stay days. So if they are staying, that will be the date we discharged them minus the dates we admitted them. I guess that's what we are going to do. Okay, I'm already giving you the answer at the beginning. I'm sorry. I'm not going to do that again. Okay, and we want to know which insurance provider. Okay, looks like we have something. Okay, we have something on insurance provider. So these are some of the things you just want to do in your prepare phase. In your prepare phase, you can also check the data type for the data set you're working with to make sure that you don't have any problem as regards data type. Okay, I said you can check it in the column section here. Okay, so you can check the data type here, make sure that the data type, okay, you can see date of admission is formatted as dates and discharge date is formatted as dates. Okay, so because if you are trying to answer this second business question, we would have to subtract the date. So if it's not formatted as date, we definitely have a problem. Okay, and have to change the data type. Okay, so part of data exploration is you checking your columns to make sure that everything is going to work together. There's a lot you can do with data exploration actually, but we won't be able to touch everything in this class because I mean you can't learn everything in one day. All right, so another data exploration we are going to do is for columns where we have like categorical data. We want to make sure, we want to know how many categories we have in that column. If, for example, we can have male, female, and I told you that when they are entering the data, there might be like a typographical error whereby where they are supposed to write male, they forgot to put the last E. So the person wrote MALE. So it's going to categorize that as another category. That will be three categories. And it's supposed to be just two categories, just male and female. So these are some of the data cleaning we look out for. But we have to first explore it in the prepare phase so that we'll know that, oh, we have to clean this later on. So now let's just check for the category. Like I said in the previous class, to check for category, we use the distinct function to check for unique categories. And then we can select distinct. Let's first check for gender. Okay, we can check for gender. So I'll just do select distinct. Let's start with the gender column as this. So I can run it to see if there's no error. You can see that we have just two gender, which makes sense. Okay, that means there's no problem at all with the gender column. Okay, so you can just check for the medical conditions. You can check for the insurance provider to see, because sometimes you might have Medicare and the next one will be like Medcare. Okay, so if you have like Medicare, Medcare, even though it sounds alike, you first want to confirm, you want to reach out to your stakeholders to ask if there's an insurance provider that is Medicare separately and Medicare separately before you go ahead to like modify the data set and update the data set. If they said, oh, we only have Medicare, that means that was a typographical error, and then you can change every Medicare you have to Medicare. So we can just write it for multiple categories and then we can run in to see the category. You can see the blood type that we have, the different blood type, zero positive, O negative, AB minus, AB plus, A negative, B negative. All right, so that looks correct. Okay, that's the different blood type that we have. So you can use the distance to check the distance category to make sure that we don't have any error. And don't forget that you can always write comments for every line of query that you're writing. For example, this one, you can just write check the entire column in the data table, something like that. Okay, and for this one, you can just say check unique category in the gender column. Okay, so you can keep writing comments at the beginning of every query that you're writing so that later on when you need to like check, maybe you have having difficulty with a project and it's similar to the project that you've worked on before, you can easily just come back to it and then see, okay, that, and then you can remind yourself basically from the comments, you can say, oh, this is what I tried to do here. So, okay, I'm supposed to use this thing function, stuff like that. That's the essence of the commenting, okay? For your data exploration, you might also want to just do some summary stats by checking for the minimum, maximum, stuff like that. So like data exploration is just you getting to know the data, checking out for any cleaning that you have to do, all of those things. So that's what you do. Not just cleaning though, just like getting to know the data, right? So we can do some summary stats. Okay, let me first run this one. Okay, we can do summary stats like, okay, I want to know the minimum age. Okay, so I can do select and I can do minimum age. Okay, then I can do from. Sorry, I'm writing it on the same line. Healthcare. Okay, so if you want to know the minimum age, you can easily can say, oh, the least person that we admitted that came to the hospital is 13, and I could just duplicate this query to get the maximum. So let me do maximum now. Okay, so we can see that the maximum age is 89. So this data set, you can say according to the data, the ages of patients is between 13 to 89. You understand? So these are some of the things you can need this for. So you can further explore more. I may want to know the average billing amount, right? So I can just do AVG here, and I can do billing amount here. Okay, and then we can just run all of this, and then we gain inside. Okay, we can see that the average billing amount is 25,000, is around 25, 26K. Okay, so these are just some of the summary stats that we can use and data exploration. So I'll be stopping here for the data exploration, but you don't have to stop here. You can proceed further to just explore the data itself, try to finish up these unique categories that we're checking for all of the data sets. So it's almost time for my work, and I'm just trying to record this video before I get to work, and that's why. And you have to take note that, and you have to note that an actual project like this, I would make sure that I check every single column. I check everything in and out because I am paid for the job, and I should help the business make informed decisions, not to mislead them, right? So you want to take your time as a data analyst. There's no need to rush. Take your time, be patient, be attentive, be think critically, basically. So you can help the business solve their problem. Okay. Let's move now to the next phase of our data analysis process, which is data cleaning. And for data cleaning, I told you that there are two major data cleaning I look out for before I check for other data cleaning, which is checking for null values and checking for duplicates. Okay, so let's start by checking for null values. To check for null values, you can check all of your tables from the data table, okay, and you are going to add a condition that where the column is null.
You can see that the result is giving us empty values. That means that we don't have null value in this particular ID column, which is the first column, and we can check through the other columns.
But if you want to check for multiple columns, then you can say something like where the first column is null, or then you can now keep typing where the second column is null or where the third column is null.
So as you can see now, we're checking through all the columns, and you can see that we have one row that is null, and the cell where we have null is in the billing amount. Now, to undo this null, we can either undo it in two ways. Is either we delete that row or we replace the billing amount value. We can either replace the billing amount value with the mean. Okay, so we are going to calculate the average for the total billing column and then replace it with that, or we can just delete that row. And you remember I said it during our Excel tutorial that you have to check that the percentage of null is less than 3 to 5% of the entire data set. So here we have one row that has null, and we have about 55,000 for the entire data set, which is very insignificant. So first, let me show you how to delete.
What you have to do is just use the delete from. We use the delete to remove rules from a data set. You remember where I told you the difference between drop, truncate, and delete? I hope you still remember all of these things because this is when you need them. Imagine you are using drop in this case and you just say drop healthcare. You are deleting the entire table. So if you can't remember, you can go back to the notes so that you can remember. Okay, so I can delete from the healthcare. Then I'm going to specify what row I want to delete. So I can say where the ID equals to. So this is the ID. I can use the ID to trace it out, okay, because ID is unique in this case. So I can just copy this ID, Ctrl C to copy, and just paste it here. Okay, so if I run this now, it's going to delete this entire row in our data set. That means we'll no longer have null value if we run it. Okay, but in this case, I don't want to delete it. I just wanted to show you how you can delete if you have to. Okay, so to replace the null value now, I can either do it manually or just use the subqueries directly. So you can see that all these things are like working hand in hand. Everything you learned is now working hand in hand. So let me first show you how you can do it manually, like by writing two separate queries. And I'm also going to show you how you can just write one query using you can just write one query for everything using subqueries. Okay, let me just label this. We did not delete it, but let me just write a comment just in case, so you have it in your notes. Um delete null value. So I can just put in brackets that I didn't do that, or something like that, to remind myself that, okay, I'm just trying to explain the query to you guys and I did not delete the null value. So I can have another comment stating that I want to update the null values with the mean. Okay, so if I want to update the null value with the mean now, I first need to know what the mean billing amount is in this data set. So that means I'm going to write a query to get the average billing amount first. And then the average billing amount, I can now use the update query to like update it. Okay, so from healthcare, all right, so you can first run this query to get the average billing amount. So once you get your average billing amount, on the next line you can now update it. Okay, so to update it, you're just going to use the update query. So you're going to say update healthcare, which is your data table. Okay, and then we're going to set, what are we setting now? We want to set the billing amount, is where we have the null. So we want to say set billing amount equals to this value. So I can just copy this value and paste it right in front. But if I just run this now, all the billing amount column is going to change it to this value. And that's why you have to be very careful when you're doing anything like updates, delete. You have to make sure that you understand the query so that you don't just mess up the company's database. Okay, so I can now add a conditional statement that where ID. Okay, so what's the ID of that column that we are trying to work with now? I can't remember it, so let me just run these null values again so we can see the ID. Okay, so we can see that the ID for that column is 2681. I could just copy it, not to stress, and paste it here. Okay, so what we are now saying is, first we run this query to check what the average for the billing amount column is. After we checked, we are now trying to update it now where the ID, so that we are going to trace this row exactly and change the ID, the billing amount here. Okay, and this is how you can write it in two separate ways. First check manually, then update. Okay, but if you want to use the subquery, I know you will not like this one. Okay, so let me just do using subqueries. Okay, so using subqueries now, I'm just going to say update directly. So I'm just going to say update healthcare. Then I'll do set. Okay, we want to set the billing amount to be equals to, okay, so you can see we are still using part of this, okay, but equals to, instead of just specifying the value straight, we don't want to run this query first, so we can just open brackets and now write our subquery inside here. The subquery is where we are just going to paste this one that is supposed to get the average billing amount. So can you see that? So I can add it like this. So in this subquery, to come inside the subquery to get the value, and the value it gets in the subquery, we now want to modify it as the billing amount, the new billing amount we are trying to set. Okay, and now I can specify the condition down here that where ID equals to 26812. All right, so we can either use this manual entry, like first check your average, then now update it manually, or you can just use subqueries to update it directly. So this one will get the average and then it will now update it, it will add it into this value section. Okay, this one. Okay, so now we've updated it. So now let's check if we still have null values. We definitely should not have null values. So can you see now that we don't have null values? Okay, and yeah, that is how we can basically like remove, update null values in our data set. Okay, so now that I've showed you some of the ways to undo null values in your data set, let's now proceed to see how we can undo duplicates in our data set. So now we'll go ahead to check for duplicates in our data. Let's check if any patients have been entered more than once by their unique ID. So we already know that the ID column is supposed to be unique, right? So to check for duplicates, I can just select the ID and count how many times each of the ID appeared. Okay, so I'm going to count it. I can give it a name. I can just call it maybe like record count. Okay, and then I'll specify from where. From healthcare, obviously, that's the data set we are working with. And then let me group it by ID. So for each ID that we have, it's going to group it. So if it appears more than one, it's going to group it as one. Okay, so I'm going to say group by ID. All right, And in the next line, I want to specify a condition that the count of the ID, it should only show me where the count of the ID is greater than 1. And in our previous class, you remember I explained group by and having clause and the difference between having and where clause, when to use them. So if you can remember, I said that you use having whenever there's group by in your query, right? So instead of where here, we are going to use having, okay? So I can say having the count greater than 1. Okay, so let me just recap what I'm trying to say with this query, okay? I'm saying that it should give me the ID column and also show me another column that counts how many times each of the ID appears. So I've grouped the ID, okay? So I'm now adding a conditional clause that, okay, only show me where the ID is greater than 1. Don't show me everything, filter it out. Only where the ID appears more than once. Where this, like for example, if 102 appears more than once, it's going to show me 102 and it's going to tell me that it appeared, the count is twice or 3 times or how many times it appears. So let's check for the duplicates by running this. And now you can see that we don't have any record. That means that we have no duplicates in this data set. There is no part in our data set where we have the same ID. If we don't have duplicates, we can move on, okay? But I need to show you how to remove duplicates in case you have duplicates in your data set and you're trying to remove it. So let me quickly show you how to remove duplicates in your data set. Okay, so if I wanted to remove duplicates in the ID column, I would have just used CTE to do that, okay? So I would use CTE and I'm going to give it a name. So let's just call it duplicate, or let me just call it dupli, okay? And then I'll say has. In my bracket now, I'm going to select all the columns first. So I'm going to select all. And I'm also going to use the Windows function, which is row number. We discussed this few days ago. I said row number will count, will assign a unique number without repetition to each of the cell, right? So we can just use row number to assign. So each of the ID is going to give it 1, 2, 3, 4, and there will not be repetition, okay? So I can use the row number now, and then I'll partition it by the ID. That means I'm grouping it by the ID, if you still remember that clearly. So I'm not emphasizing the explanation because I believe you understood it when we talked about it in that class, okay? And if you have a problem with it, you can go back to your notes and try to understand it and come back to this one right here, right? Now I can close the brackets, okay? So the first thing I want to do is I'm trying to create a new table. In this new table, it's just going to show me all the column and count them, okay? So let's run this table so you see what I'm saying. So you can see we said select all, so it's going to show me all the columns in the table. And at the end here, you can see we created a new column for the counts of the row number. So it's going to assign a row number to this last column, okay? And then we partitioned it. Because we partitioned it now, we are grouping it, okay? So it's going to count it as 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, right? That means the time it appeared in this particular data set. So now we can now say that it should delete we can now use the delete query that it should delete from. Now we are deleting from this CTE table, which is dupli, okay? And we are going to say that where I named this column Rn now, so I'm going to say where the Rn is greater than 1. Okay, so let me just quickly recap what I did again. First of all, we are using CTE. You can also use temp tables, you know, right? But I'm using CTE in this case, so you can choose your preference. You can rewrite this using a temp table to be sure that you understand everything we've been saying so far. I'm trying to declare a temporary table where I'm going to create a new column, and in this new column, I'm going to have the count of how many times each of the ID appeared. The name of my temporary table is dupli. In the duplicate table, I want to use the row number to count how many times, to rank them, how many times they appear, okay? Now I'm grouping them by the ID, all right? And then I'm ordering by the ID, okay? So now it will count how many times each of the ID group appeared, okay? So if 101 it appears twice, it's going to group it and say that, oh, it appeared twice. That's just what I kept in this table, okay? So and now I now said I should delete from this my duplicate table where this column that I created that will count it is greater than 1. So if it is greater than 1, that means there is duplicate, okay? And you remember that whenever we want to run our CTE, we have to run it together with the main query, okay? But advice, if you are doing this, you can use the temp table for it instead, because after you delete from the rows, then you have to keep using this temporary table instead of your original table, okay? And this is how you can just remove duplicates from a data table, okay? And in some scenarios, the data that you work with might not have ID. ID will uniquely identify a column. So let's imagine that we don't have ID in this column. We only have age, gender, blah, blah, blah. And you also want to check for duplicates in this type of data. How can you do that? So if I wanted to do that, okay, I'm just going to modify this one. So instead of selecting only ID, okay, I'm going to select all the data sets, right, and count all of it, okay, how many times all of it appeared. Then I'm going to say from the table. So instead of group by ID, remember I'm saying that we don't have ID column. So I'm going to group by age. I'm going to say age, comma, gender. So I'm going to do comma for all of the columns that I have in the data set till the test result. And I'm going to leave it as having count greater than 1. So I want to check for duplicates across the entire data table, not just one column now. And if you also want to remove the duplicates, right, for example, we remove the duplicates here, okay, so in that kind of scenario, what you want to do is in your partition by now, you are not going to have ID, right? You are now going to have all of your column that you would have put here, okay, all of your column. So that is what you partition it by. You group it by all of your columns. So you check for the duplicates across all the columns, and then you don't need to order it by anything. It doesn't have to be ordered. So it will look something like partition by, then you can have the age, you can have the gender, you can have all of your column. You just specify it inside this bracket, and every other thing will remain the same. Then you just say where the count is greater than 1. Okay, so this is for an example whereby you don't have like any ID to like check for the unique value, and then you just have different columns in your data set. So you just have to specify the column. So I just wanted to chip that in quickly in case you have a data set that does not have ID, okay? And also, let's say that we notice that we have trailing and leading spaces in the column that we want to remove to keep our data clean, okay? And also maybe we want to turn, maybe everything is not written properly and we just want to turn everything to like lowercase text, okay? Let me show you how you can do that as well. We can use the lower function to turn everything to a lowercase. And we can also use the trim function to remove leading and trailing spaces. Okay, so we can just do select, and then I'm going to use lower and trim at the same time. I don't want to do it one after the other. Then I can do medical underscore condition. Okay, and I can just name it cleaned. I can name it cleaned underscore med. Okay, then I'll say from healthcare, right? Okay, so what this is going to do now, let's see. You can see the way it is before medical condition. The first one is uppercase, while the rest is lowercase. And in case we have trailing and leading spaces, that's why we added this trim. So we are calling two functions at a time. If I run it now, okay, so you can see we have an error saying incorrect syntax near the word from. Okay, so that means we opened two brackets, but we closed one, and that's the problem. So let me close the brackets and run it again. Okay, so you can see now that I changed everything to lowercase, and if there was any leading and trailing space, the trim function too would have removed that. Okay, so you first use the select query to run whatever modification you want to do to see it. Once you see it and you see that okay, everything is working perfectly, then you can now use the update query to update it in your data set. So if I wanted to update this one now, I'll now do update healthcare, and I'll now say set, then I'll say set, okay, and I'll say set the column, that's medical condition column. I'll say it should set it equals to, then I can just copy these functions that I used right here and paste it here. Okay, so that's mostly how I run my query. I want to see what it will bring for me first before I update it, because once you update, you cannot undo. All right, so I'd also employ that you use this approach anytime you need to update anything. So you first check it to see if that's the correct thing you want it to give you. Once you confirm that, then you can update it in your query. So I just wanted to show you, so you can see now that I've updated it. You can see that in the medical condition column, it has turned everything to lowercase, and we cannot undo that. We can't. Okay, so that's why you have to always be careful when you are making any updates. So lastly, before I get to work now, because I'm running pretty late for work, okay, I'm just quickly going to show you, because most times you are going to be working with the dates column. Okay, and for the dates column, sometimes you might need to extract only the year or only the month name or the day of the week that it falls into. So I'm going to show you that quickly before we come to the end of this video, and I'm going to just divide it into two parts. So maybe I can make another one tomorrow for the analysis, where you're going to see how we are going to now answer all the business questions that we have in this data set. Okay, So for to extract, so let's say for this date of admission now, I want to have a column that extracts the year. So maybe I want to see the yearly trend of something, or I want to see the monthly trend of something. Okay, so all I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna say select. All right, so there's a function called date part. Okay, so date part is what you use to extract anything that has to do with part of a date, so just like it sounds. So if I'm going to extract the year, I want to extract the year, so I'm gonna write year, then comma, then I'm going to specify the name of the columns. All right, so I can close the brackets and say from the table, so that's healthcare table. So if I run this, okay, so let me include this column as well, so that it will show us this column and the extract. So we want to see two columns, so I'm going to copy this and just paste it right here and add my comma. So if I run this now, you can see it's going to give me the original column and the extract that I asked for. So you can see this one, the year is 2024, this one, the year is 2019, and on like that. And you already know if you want to give it a name, you can just write as year, and then you can say admission. This one will be admission year. Okay, so we can have sorry, that was a mistake. So we can have it as that. Okay, you can see it is now labeled. Okay, so if you are trying to get the month number, okay, you know the date part works for the number. So if I'm trying to get the month number, I can run this as well, and it's gonna give me the month number. So you can see 01 is the month, 8 is the month, 9 is the month, and on like that. And let's say I don't want to know the month's name instead. I don't want to know the month's number. So I can change this. There's another function that we call the date name. Okay, so I can do date name. So date name will extract the month's name, not the month's number this time. Okay, so let's run it. You can see that 01 is giving me January, 08 is giving me August. Okay, and if I want to know the day of week that date falls under, then I can just do weekday right here. So I can run it. You can see this was on a Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday, and on like that. Okay, so date part will extract the number, while date name will extract the name of the month and of the day of the week. Okay, so I just wanted to show you this in case you have to do the monthly trend of something, the weekly trend of something, and all of that. Okay, so we're going to stop here for now. In the next class, I'm going to show you how we are going to answer all of the business questions that we have using these data sets. I can't wait to see you tomorrow, and bye for now.